Welcome back to the Secret Passage podcast and our last episode of the fall season before we go on our break, and then we'll be back for winter season. I am your host, Dana Vespoli. With me, as always, is the amazing Shannon Rogers.
That's right. Hi, everyone. This is Dana's co-host, Shannon Rogers. This is me trying to be normal. Tim's like, you have to say more than hi when she introduces you. It's so awkward.
No, I'm so used to your little hi because you'll send me voice memos and you'll start it with hi.
That's so true. It's so weird. Oh, God.
But by the time this episode comes out, it'll be the day after Thanksgiving. So as our secret passage, Shannon, let's do two things. Tell me, what is something, I'm not going to say the thing you're most thankful for, because that's heavy and there's usually more than one. What is something that you are thankful for, and what is your favorite Thanksgiving dish?
Okay. So I'm very thankful for you and for our podcast. And I'm really grateful for our listeners who write such sweet messages and comments. And my favorite, I don't eat a lot of bread anymore or a lot of like carby stuff, but my favorite thing for Thanksgiving is definitely stuffing, and like the most boxed stuffing of all time, like stovetop stuffing. I love it.
I was just having this conversation with my boxing coach. Shout out to Coach Brandon Krause at Outlaws Boxing in Tarzana. He's awesome. He loves stuffing and I don't.
Usually I would be totally grossed out by it. I hate bread and water. I hate like gravy and stuff. Like it's disgusting to me, but for some reason, smushed up stuffing is delicious. What about you? And your
Okay. Well, my favorite dish, first of all, because now I'm like so into. First of all, I had a piece of pumpkin pie this morning for breakfast before I went to box, because I went ahead and I got pumpkin pie early. I'll get it again for Thursday, but I just fucking love pumpkin pie so much, and so I just got like a big one, and we were eating it last night, and this morning I'm like, fuck it, I'm gonna have a piece.
That's so
I
funny.
love.
I don't love pumpkin pie, and I don't love pie in general. I only love pudding pies, like chocolate,
What about lemon
coconut
meringue?
cream. Not really. I like pecan pie.
Interesting.
I
Well,
know.
my favorite
Mhm.
dish is honestly, so the most of the time, like for like 10 plus years now, I've had every Thanksgiving with Kaden Cross. She makes the best food, and she makes this brie mashed potatoes.
Ooh, wow.
So good. It is so good. That's like my favorite thing. One of them, I'm gonna say that, and then I'm a big fan of sides, right?
Me too.
I like the cranberry sauce because I'm like a sweet and savory combination type person,
Mhm.
and, anything like creamed corn or in, like, green bean casserole and things like
Oh,
that
I
are so
love green bean casserole.
yes,
Yum.
I am thankful for I mean, obviously, I've message you this all the time about how grateful I am for the podcast, to be able to, create a community and have a conversation about so many things and try to make sense out of the human condition, right? But I try to break it down. As you know, I pray every single day. And I
Mhm.
try to start out with just the thing that I think we take for granted the most, which is I'm grateful for the air in my lungs, the
Mhm.
mobility in my body, and the vision of my eyes, because not everybody has all of those things, right?
Yes.
And
Oh,
it's a gift, and each day is not promised. And I am incredibly blessed, and I am not entitled to all the things that I have. I have them by the grace of God. And so that is probably what I'm fundamentally most, like, I'm not going to say most grateful for, but that I am grateful for.
totally. I mean, just
And
overall general health and,
yeah,
like, being ability to move. Yeah.
yes, the things that we take for granted until we don't have those things anymore. It's interesting because there's what is it? I see this all the time. I follow these different accounts, and one of them, I'm sure you've heard this before, which is, everybody has like 50 to 100 problems until they have a health problem, and then
Yes.
then they just have one problem.
Yep.
And
Yep.
so I think about that a lot.
Yeah.
And speaking of taking things for granted, and being alive, our episode that we're discussing today is really, I struggle with every episode we do when we do tragedies. This one really fucking fucked with me. Like, I was shedding a lot of tears about this particular case.
Yeah.
The case of the murders of Channon Christian and Christopher Newsom, um,
That's so
out of
interesting. Sorry.
Knoxville, Tennessee. Yeah.
It's so interesting that you had that response. So, when we had we used to have group supervision when I was an intern, and people would present cases. And when someone would present a case, each of us would have a different response to the case. And then our supervisor would go around and she would say, "Guys, just feel into your body. Like, what are you feeling, thinking, sensations in your body?" And inevitably, each of us would have a slightly different experience, but it would all be um, part of the dynamics of trauma, basically. Like, someone would be dissociated, someone would be enraged, someone would be crying, someone would be frozen. It's so interesting because when you say you were crying a lot, I was like, I couldn't. When I engaged with this case from the get go, when I first heard about it, what I get is this like breathless, frozen, tingling, I'm about to leave my body feeling. Like, it's just so awful, this case, right? And
Yeah.
like this the sheer sort of like, like humans, we go way back, right? But nowadays we don't have to worry so much about being prey. But early humans were like very small and very threatened by other animals. And when I think of this case, it taps into this like very primal fear of like, or the feeling of being preyed upon, feeling of
Right.
being, yeah. Ugh, anyway.
Yes, but this case, I mean, it was a while back. It was 2007. The case of the murders of Shannon Christian and Christopher Newsom. As I said, this happened in Knoxville, Tennessee, in January, and so I'll just get into it. I know we still have a trigger warning ahead of these episodes. This is
I
bad.
took it off.
Okay, so then I'm just
Yeah.
gonna alert listeners and viewers right now that this is a really, really disturbing case that deals with rape, torture, and murder. So those three things, and it's these crimes, the violence, the senseless violence that the victims were subjected to is unimaginable. So proceed with caution. Totally understand if you don't want to engage with this. It sticks with you. It's stuck with me for a while. Anyway, moving on. So the details of the case, the background of this case is Shannon Christian was a 21-year-old college student at University of Tennessee. She was studying sociology. Came from a very loving family. By all accounts, a nice young woman. I don't wanna say that she was full of life and she lit up a room because I have no idea.
But it
She didn't
has
even
been said about her that she
about
did. Yeah.
yes, that's just I tend to feel like that's just something that people say, but she
Mhm.
was a very kind, loving, young woman and incredibly close to her family, and she had a lot of friends. She worked really hard. I think she was working 2 jobs, and had bought a 4Runner that she was very proud of, and she took very, very good care of this car and had even decorated it inside with like a little teddy bear and like pictures of loved ones. And so And her boyfriend, it was a new relationship. They'd only been dating a few months, but they were super into each other. Christopher Newsom, who was 23, and also came from a very, very loving family and had a lot of friends and was especially kind. I was able to get more like kind of little details about him.
Mhm.
And he was he had been a really tremendous athlete. He
Mhm.
played baseball in high school, and his coach and a lot of other people said that if he had wanted to, he could have probably gone pro, but he didn't. He was interested in pursuing carpentry, which was like a big love of his. And so he was working in carpentry, and there's an anecdote about him that really like just like this is the guy you want in your corner.
Mm.
Apparently, he had a lot of friends, but he was very attuned to people that he knew were being bullied, and he would sort of take them under his wing. And apparently, there was a situation where there was a girl that was very lonesome, didn't have a lot of friends, and he knew that she didn't have a date for prom, and so he made a point to ask her to prom. And I'm like, "What?"
I know.
Just a good guy. So these 2, were really good people, you know? And on the evening of January 6th, 2007, Shannon and Christopher, I'll call him Chris, Shannon and Chris were set to go out to dinner and then go to a party. And so Chris was busy with some stuff, and Shannon went to her really good friend's apartment to get ready to for the evening. And apparently she practically lived at this apartment. She was so tight with her pal, and so she was there doing her thing, hanging out, putting on her makeup and all that. And then she found out that Christopher was running behind. And so her friends left without her, with the expectation they'd be seeing her later on at this party. And Shannon, who practically lived at this apartment anyway, was like, "Okay, cool." She was just going to stay there, lock up when Chris got there. And so Chris showed up and went to get her, and they walked out to the parking lot, the apartment building parking lot, where Chris had parked his car and Shannon had her 4Runner parked, and they were just standing at her car. Or I think she was actually sitting in the driver's side, and he was kind of perched like outside, just quick chatting with her
I think
with
they
the
were
door open.
kissing and stuff.
And they were, yeah, kissing. I have no idea if they were like talking about where they were going to go have dinner, whatever, but they were together. They were sharing a moment. All of a sudden, they were accosted by, they were swarmed by a group of guys with a gun. Uh, and they were carjacked, but they weren't just carjacked. They were shoved into the 4Runner, forced into the back seat, where they were then bound, and they were driven to another location, this house on Chipman Street in also in Knoxville. And they were taken into the house, separated, blindfolded, they couldn't see. And Christopher was raped with an object, the foreign object, and raped with a male forced himself on Christopher and anally raped him, beaten up. And then Christopher was then taken to these train tracks not far, where he was gagged with his own socks in his mouth. He was barefoot, hands tied behind his back, and forced to walk to these tracks, where he was then shot execution style, I believe 3 times, back, shoulder, and then head. And then he was wrapped in a comforter and set on fire. Meanwhile, Shannon was being held prisoner in the house, and she was tied or handcuffed or, restrained on an air mattress where she was tortured, raped vaginally and anally with what they suspect was like the leg of a chair, and also, men, uh, penile penetration. She was orally raped to the point where her mouth was brutalized, and her I forgot what the little thing is that attaches your lip to the top of your gums.
Frenulum.
Her frenulum was ripped. She had bleach poured down her throat. She was kicked and beaten in her groin area all over, but there was especially a lot of damage done to the outside of her groin. And then this happened over the course of a couple days. So all the evening of January 6th, all throughout January 7th. And then she was bound in the fetal position, forced into several garbage bags with another bag over her head, and she was shoved into a garbage can where she suffocated to death. And she was found on January 9th. And her eyes were open when they found her. She died with her eyes open. The perpetrators of this crime are Lamarcus Davidson, who had recently been released from prison. His brother, Latalvis Cobbins, was the other perpetrator. Latalvis's friend, George Thomas. Lamarcus's friend, Eric Boyd. And Latalvis's girlfriend, Vanessa Coleman. All of them are doing time now, with Lamarcus on death row. I can't, when I think about these crimes, I can't understand. I want to understand this level of cruelty. This level of cruelty, it defies any kind of human understanding. Because, I think about the fact that they were carjacked. And apparently, I think based on Latalvis's testimony, he said that they had, or his statement, he said that originally they were just supposed to steal the car, because they were going to steal the car, and I want to say sell it for parts, right?
Mhm.
They were none of them had a fucking dime. None of them had any money. Most of them were homeless. And when I say homeless, I don't mean that they were like living on the streets. I think they were just bouncing from crash pad to crash pad.
I think they,
Lamer
that house, there was one of them sold drugs. I think Latalvis, someone sold
Latalvis.
drugs.
Yeah.
Um, and he was living with his girlfriend before this happened, and they broke up, and she moved out.
Oh, no, that would be Lamarcus.
Oh, that's
With that.
Lamarcus. Yeah,
Yeah.
Lamarcus. So Latalvis sold drugs, and okay, got it. And they were also they had smoked a wet blunt. I forgot to look up,
Apparently.
I forgot to look up, when you smoke a marijuana with a joint that's been doused in, what is it, like
Embalming fluid.
That can't be good.
Yeah, I'm gonna, well, why don't you look up what
Okay.
the effects are? Because according to Latalvis's, statement, like, he didn't get real specific. He was also
They all were lying, in
well,
a lot of places.
they were all trying to sorry, make themselves look, as innocent as possible, and so Latalvis insisted that he didn't know that it was a wet blunt, and he insisted that he just simply felt weird. You know, he didn't get into specifics about what
Oh,
what what
so a wet blunt could be PCP laced?
he said embalming fluid, though.
Yeah, so the embalming fluid one, which often contains formaldehyde, the effects are primarily driven by PCP, they say. So I think the formaldehyde, unless he was hiding that there was PCP in it. So it's really the PCP that makes you go cuckoo.
Go nuts,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, but so if they were just, I mean, I don't understand why somebody would do it with embalming fluid anyway, because just with embalming fluid without the PCP, because what's the point? Um, so I guess it's both. Well, I don't know. They say sometimes in I don't know. It can't be good.
Right. Uh, but these guys were, with the exception of Lamarcus, everyone else, like, didn't really have a place to live. None of them had any money, and so they were heading out to carjack, ostensibly to take the vehicle and sell it for parts. And that what happened with Shannon and Christopher being, positioned outside of her forerunner was that they could see headlights in the distance, and they panicked, and they just shoved. Shannon was already sitting; she was still sitting in her car. They basically shoved Christopher in, pushed her into the back seat, and took off. So uh, let's say that that's true. That they originally, let's say that they were just planning on stealing the car, leaving Shannon and Christopher, you know, stuck in the parking garage, and taken off with their car, and then selling it for parts, whatever. Okay, fine. Let's say that that was originally their plan. And let's say that, yes, they panicked, shoved them in the car, and then what they were going to do was take them to another location and kill them, and then proceed with the car and do whatever. Fine, right? That happens sometimes. It's terrible, but it happens. What I can't figure out is why in the hell they were like, hell, let's torture, rape, and murder these two
I know.
instead of
That's
just killing them. I mean, it's still horrible, but still, it's over quickly, relatively quickly.
and
But
you have less to clean up and less chance of, like, getting caught. Um, I mean, just leaving them at a gas station or leaving them on the side of the road would be that's the thing. My dad was a cop, and he always used to say this to me, like, that burglars and people that will kinda that they make sure that that no one's home because they don't want a complicating factor, right? They don't wanna get caught, and they don't necessarily wanna hurt anyone. Um, so, you'd think if you're gonna steal a car, you just take the car, right? Then you don't have to get hung up on some charge of kidnapping or whatever else if but yeah, I so you know how you talked about this, about, like, the difference between individual crime, like, what people will do when they're individuals and versus what they'll do within groups?
yes,
Do you want me to I looked up some I always we always know it, we see it, right? We see what
right.
the kind of stuff that people will do in groups that is so heinous and so much more destructive than what they tend to do, as an individual. But I wondered why. So I'll tell you what I found. Um, so group violence, this is so interesting. So, like, forensic psychologists have known for a long time that ordinary people almost never commit crimes this heinous on their own. Um, but, like, the odds of a crime like this happening in a group are much higher because of these things research has shown. So, like, most of us have, like, automatic brakes on, like, the kinds of things we'll do, right? Like, in terms of, like, violence or, you know, hurting other people in some way. But when you're in a group, I guess these are a couple of the mechanisms that make it, that sort of take the brakes off of people's violence and behavior. So, de-individuation, which is this, like, in a group, your sense of "I" kinda disappears because you feel anonymous when you're in a crowd. So whether it's like wearing masks or it's dark outside or there like just a ton of you, your personal identity and your internal like moral standards kind of switch off. You stop feeling like an individual who can be judged. Um, and then diffusion of responsibility is another thing. So like if you're in a big group doing something, like I can imagine the five of them. There were five of them, right? Like eventually because Vanessa was in the house too.
Right.
Yeah. So the guilt kind of ends up getting divided by the number of people. Like you're each person kind of thinks I'm only doing a little, or if it was really wrong, someone in this room would stop it. So nobody feels like fully 100% responsible, and so therefore no one puts the brakes on. And then there's like this is for like mostly mob violence, but I think it could apply here. There's like a dehumanization that happens, and then there's a group like polarization. So the group kind of eggs itself on to more extreme acts than anybody would ever do solo because the victim is kind of stripped of their humanity. You know, they're not like us, they deserve it. And then the cruelty stops feeling like cruelty. It feels like justice or fun, even. And, you know, so we saw that in the movie The Accused, right?
Yeah.
Like, so you see it in the Stanford prison experiment and those like Milgram's obedience studies in riots. Um,
The Kill Team, the
yeah,
documentary, where a lot of these dudes, they're like, well, here they are in a group. They're in the military. They're in a foreign land. They have an absolute sociopath heading their squad who
mm,
comes up with this idea to do thrill kills, and they just go along with it. It brings to mind the Hannah Arendt's "The Banality of Evil,"
mhm,
where these atrocities exist in a group,
yes,
and it's like individuation, like you were saying, just goes out the window. And maybe Lamarcus would have never done this on his own. Maybe he would have just, I mean, his priors were not murder. I mean, he had domestic violence, right?
and
And
assault charges. So
and
he's the only one that had that kind of violent criminal history. The other ones were like robbery, burglary.
sure, and also his thing was also robbery.
Mhm.
But it wasn't anything like rape. I'm not saying he never raped. I'm just saying he was never, these didn't fall into his repertoire of offenses that he did time for or was arrested for.
Yeah,
'Cause
and
this was next fucking level crazy, that the torture, I can't, like, you would think that somebody, like, people who did what they did to Christopher and Shannon had a history of rape, right?
yeah. I mean, it's wild to think. I mean, it's documented in the research that, you know, in group killings, there's way more overkill, more wounds, longer duration, because it just like it said, it just, like, kind of removes the brakes.
Right.
Yeah, like, if your brother's doing it, you're like, "Well, you know, I guess that's." I mean, maybe there was a peer pressure element too, like who was it? The Talvis, I think, was testifying and saying that Lamarcus put one of them up to it by saying, like, "You need to prove that I can trust you, so you have to do this thing."
Right.
Mhm. So there might have been some of that, but I would have run out of okay, this is what I'd like to think. I would run out of that house, go to the neighbor's house, call my mom to come pick me up.
First of all, you would never be there to begin with. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
but yeah, and then Vanessa Coleman she was sort of the bystander observing it all. I think she
Ugh.
may have, like, helped tie Shannon up at the end. She didn't participate in the assaults, as I understand it,
Mhm.
um, but was observing it all go down.
Yep.
And apparently, I was reading in the comments of one of the documentary videos that, and so who knows if it's true, but it rings true. It could be true that what one of the garbage guys that, like, between midnight and 1 a.m. on the 7th was kind of driving in, that noticed that the lights were all on in the Chipman Street house,
Mm, mm.
and there was, like, a lot of loud music playing, and a girl, presumably Vanessa Coleman, was sort of, like, kinda standing watch or sitting watch,
Oh.
and that the driver, just sort of, like, was kinda like, "Oh, that's weird. That's kind of a weird time to be up and sitting at," like, it looked peculiar, but of course your mind isn't gonna go to, like, "Oh, they must be committing a really vicious attack on someone." Um, but that's just very, it's chilling to think about, that you are passing by a house where someone desperately needs help. You just didn't know at the time.
Ugh.
But
That's like,
yes.
should we talk about the I mean, so there's so many angles with this case. Like lots of podcasts, they just sort of go through and tell the story and it's very straightforward. This for me brought up all kinds of stuff around like how can we help listeners learn from this and protect themselves. It,
So,
mhm.
this will lead into it.
Okay.
I'm gonna get into the reaction from, like, what happened, because Shannon and Christopher went missing, right? They never showed up at the party, which, kind of alarmed their friends who were trying to call them. Uh, Shannon's good friend returned home to the apartment building and saw that Shannon's car was gone, but Christopher's car was there,
Mm.
and that weirded her out. The next morning, Shannon never showed up to work. At this point, I think Christopher's parents were not too worried because he was 23, and there were plenty of times when he wouldn't, come home for the evening. Both Shannon and Christopher lived
Mhm.
with their parents still, but they didn't really trip out on it.
Mhm.
But Shannon's parents were like, "Shannon shows up to work." Like, and her work was, called her house. They were like, "She never showed up." So they call the police, and the police don't want to do anything just yet because Shannon and Christopher are adults, and they there has to be a certain amount of time that passes before the police want to have anything to do with it. And Gary and Dina are Shannon's parents, and they are like, you know, to hell with that. Then we're gonna fucking go look for our daughter because we know that this is scary and weird and completely unlike her. Uh, so they managed to get the phone company, the cell phone provider,
That was
to,
amazing.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, they managed to get the cell phone provider to let them know where her phone last pinged.
Mhm.
And so the cell phone provider tells them, okay, her phone last pinged on Cherry Street, which isn't far from the Chipman house. And it's in a very bad, scary part of town, right? A part of town that Shannon would not have ventured down. So they go and they manage to find her car around, like, close to 1 o'clock in the morning on January 8th. So then they alert the police, and the police come finally, and they search through the car. All of Shannon's belongings are gone, even the little teddy bear, the pictures. And what they find in the car is an envelope with the address of the Chipman house on it, along with Lamarcus's fingerprints, right? So, oh, I should say too that Christopher's body was found
by then, by that time.
Did I just hear The Weekend?
That's funny. Somebody's driving by and their
That's what
music
it
is
is.
playing, but I
Yeah,
don't know
yeah.
if was it The Weekend?
I think it was Blinded by the Light. Blinded by the
I
Lights.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have a lot
Sorry.
of my
Anyway,
microphone must be really
you have a good microphone. I was like, "Is that The Weekend?" Anyway, so Christopher's body was found around noon the following day after the abduction. So on the around noon of the 7th, his body was found.
and they had already been found by the time they found her car, right? And
Oh,
then
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
because
yeah.
they found her car. So if Christopher's body was found around noon on the 7th on the train tracks, then her car was found the following
Oh,
wee early morning hours, right?
okay.
But this, of course, raised a lot of panic because Christopher and Shannon were together. And so police presumably are able to get a search warrant after warrant to search the premises of the Chipman house after seeing that the address of the Chipman house was in her car and all that. So they go to the house on that. So this is now the 9th. And there's no one at this house. It's abandoned now. And they break in and they find her in the garbage can. And it doesn't take long at this point to then find all the perpetrators and arrest all of them. They questioned Daphne Sutton, who was Lamarcus's ex-girlfriend, and naturally every one of them starts to turn on each other. So Lamarcus was found with, with all the he had Christopher's cell phone, he was wearing Christopher's shoes, he took some of Shannon's personal items to Daphne Sutton's house and tried to give them to her as a gift. And she clued in on the fact that he was responsible for all of this shit.
'Cause she heard something in the news about it, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And shortly after this horrible crime was committed, Lamarcus went and robbed another store. And the thing that really stands out with this case is how it's the degree of apathy
Mhm,
that all of these perpetrators exhibited.
mhm,
It reminds me a little bit, I know I left this in a message to you, but it reminds me a little bit of the previous case with Tony McClure and
mhm.
how Tony McClure in the Kinsley Welty case, that's our prior episode we did on the murder of a little 5-year-old girl, Kinsley Welty, at the hands of her mother, Tony McClure, who just locked her in a closet, beat her, starved her. And when Tony, was unable to pin this on her ex-husband, who hadn't seen Kinsley in a really long time, she tried to pin it on him. And when she couldn't, she said, paraphrasing that, you know, okay, yeah, I just didn't want to have anything to do with her. And so I locked her in the closet, and I guess I'm going to prison now. That apathy and that kind of nihilism that you know
Mhm,
these people didn't care about the lives of Shannon and Christopher. They didn't just not care about them, but they viewed them almost in the same way that, cats view mice that they catch. That they don't put the mice out of their misery. They play with them. They toy
mhm,
with them
mhm,
before they kill them.
mhm.
They don't have to toy with them. They don't have to torment them, but it's like this sort of amusement at the fear and pain and discomfort of another living thing. So I know that Lamarcus is on death row. Everyone else has, except for Vanessa has, I think she has 30 years. Every
Mhm.
time her parole hearing comes up, they shut that shit down. Everyone else
Sheesh.
is life in prison except for Lamarcus, who's on death row. And a lot of commenters are like, they should have all gotten death row. And I don't believe in the death penalty, which is a whole other conversation. But the problem with the death penalty, especially for someone like Lamarcus and the other perpetrators, is I don't know that they care if they live or die. Like at the end of the day, they don't that level of apathy and the carelessness. I don't know that death makes a difference. If anything, being trapped behind bars forever where you're just stuck in the same routine and there's no thrill, right?
There probably is if they beat up on each other and rape each other in prison, which they do. But yeah, but I know what you're saying,
Yeah,
like, they don't have
yeah,
they're not like it's not open season for that. They can't get a
yeah.
girlfriend or whatever, like, they're not
Yeah, there's
can't live
nothing
in
exciting,
yeah,
yeah, I mean, all they can do is hurt each other, which, okay, well, now you get to know how it feels to be ass raped and, shanked and all that
we
kind of
can
thing.
only
That
hope.
yeah.
It's funny
Um,
that you it's interesting that you see the apathy because the part that for me is the most chilling is, like, of course, I'm not their therapist, and this is for entertainment purposes only, but, like,
right.
I really can see the psychopathy part of it, like, that they probably there was something about power and something about degrading and destroying these people so thoroughly, and
Yeah,
I just see like the dullness in their eyes, and sort of the like you're saying, like the nihilism, the
yeah.
apathy, and then what breaks that up is the crime, is the, like, hurting people, is the you know what I mean? Like, what gives them
The
something.
dopamine rush,
Yeah.
maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, like drugs too, just like, you know
What stands out to me as well is how they didn't try to fucking hide anything.
I
The
know.
address on the envelope, the fingerprints all over her car,
They're stupid to boot.
the stupidity.
They might have been really hopped up on drugs. That's a
Well,
possibility.
definitely. Well, for sure. If
Yeah.
they're smoking fucking PCP or whatever, they're absolutely hopped up. Um, and may also provide some insight into the severity of the abuse on Shannon and Christopher. Um, because yeah, it's the absurdity of pouring bleach down her throat and on her
Ugh.
body to try and hide evidence, but then leaving her in the house that's rented to Lamarcus,
And leaving
right?
an envelope with your address on it in the car and your thumb.
Exactly, like
Good.
all of it, like
Yeah, it's
everything
all
led to them, and
they're
it was
even
just
losers as criminals.
yeah, but that's the thing where it's like that tells me that like even the most basic steps were never taken to conceal their involvement in this, right? And that's where I see the apathy, where it doesn't
Mm,
really matter.
yeah.
Lamarcus, he gets out of prison, and what does he do? Immediately commits a crime that gets him put on death row.
So this is my thing about
Yeah,
this is we could talk about the prison stuff all day. Like, why are violent criminals let out over and over again when the recidivism rate is so high? Um, that's one question.
yeah,
Um, but the other thing is, yeah, I mean, we talk about this a lot, in like conversations about, you know, when you're so on the fringes, right? Like the context of your life is that you don't have any skills, maybe. You're like in a gang or I don't know, who knows. You don't have any like skills where you could go earn a living. You maybe have mental health issues, it's like severe personality disorders or like psychopathy. And this is all you know. Like sometimes prison is a better place. Like, that's people can't function when they get out. They get out and there's nothing holding them together, and they just go right back to the thing they know how to do, which is to do crimes to survive, which and so, I think sometimes people do commit crimes to go back in, whether it's consciously or unconsciously, and sometimes it's because they just don't know how to do anything else, and I don't know if there are supports in place. I know there are in some municipalities. Like, there are programs where you can get work, you can get housing, you can but I don't know. Yeah, it's like yeah, it's unless someone's making use of something like that, I don't feel like they should be unleashed back on the public if they've got a history of committing crime after crime after crime, and they have a history of domestic violence and violent crimes. Um, like, we need to keep a closer eye on people, right? Like, drop in visits from your parole officer or, like, but I don't
Yeah.
yeah, but it's wild, but I think in some ways, like, I wonder if he just couldn't be out because he just couldn't function in the real world. And yeah,
It seems that way, right? I mean, right away, what does he do? I mean, and it's like, and in this, he's not even on the run, dude.
I know.
In the clear light of day, after everything has happened, where he hasn't bothered to, I don't know, move Shannon's body to another location, where they leave Christopher, they don't even make sure that his remains are completely, burned. I mean, thank goodness, right? Or else that it would have
No,
taken
no.
even longer to find out what happened. I'm not saying like this is what I would have done. But you know, there was absolutely no effort put into even trying to go on the run.
Could you think of a bigger pack of losers?
I
Like,
mean, it's like Keystone Cops, but with like, yeah, these these
evil.
these these horrible, horrible criminals. Um, but that's where I go into the apathy. It just
Yeah.
really didn't seem to matter. Their lives, Shannon and Christopher's lives didn't matter, and also apparently their own lives don't matter because they're not even trying. They're not even trying to like flee the fucking town, dude. Lamarcus was still in town.
I think that points to the psychopathy because they just don't think about consequences. They just don't. It doesn't
Sure.
like the rest of us, they don't think in it's, in their brains. It's something that's hard for them to think about. What might happen if I do this thing? And that's so dangerous, man. I think for the rest of us, we recognizing, I think what's so terrifying about this case, recognizing that we are surrounded by people that we don't really know what's going on with them psychologically, and that they might view us as prey. That they might see a crime of opportunity, which could escalate into like, oh, another opportunity to rape you, and then another opportunity to kill you. It's so this brings me to our conversation about never going to a second location. Do you think we should talk
Yes.
about that?
Yeah, I think we should. I
So
think
I
real quick, I just want to kind of like wrap up just this the where this case
case.
ended up. Um yeah, everyone involved pretty much is in prison. Lamarcus is on death row. Um Both Shannon's family and Christopher's families, there are scholarships in their names. Shannon's, I believe, is a scholarship at University of Tennessee, Knoxville, and Christopher's, I believe, it's a high school athletic scholarship. I think,
I
but
think so.
yeah, for baseball. And Gary and Dina divorced at some point after this horrible tragedy took place, and Gary remarried. He passed in 2024, so last year. And there's a lot of talk that some people believe this was a hate crime
Mhm.
because the perpetrators were Black, and that there were some um, neo-Nazi organizations that tried to co-opt this tragedy and say that, Blacks are trying to kill whites and this is what happens and da 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 da, which is ridiculous and stupid. And even, Shannon and Christopher's families were like, "Leave us the fuck alone. These are our tragedies. You know, we don't think this has anything to do with that at all. This was a crime of opportunity."
Mhm.
Um, so I shared that sentiment as well. I do not think that. And I'm disgusted by a lot of just like a lot of people. There was a lot of really racist. I don't know if you looked at some of the comments in
Oh, I'm sure.
it was really fucking racist.
Yeah.
Um,
I think that's why this wasn't covered. Someone was saying that this is why there are no documentaries about this case. There's, like, 1 episode of 1 show, and then there's some on YouTube, but they're saying that for such a heinous case, it didn't get a lot of publicity, and they think it's because how it got politicized really quickly by the KKK and other people.
I think
Yeah,
that's the thing is
yeah.
then what happens is a lot of because obviously this is uh with how absolutely horrifying this case is, it makes for great, you know, makes for a great documentary. But I agree with you. I think that a lot of production companies and stuff didn't want to touch it because of how politicized it became,
Mhm.
which is unfortunate because it completely takes away from the tragedy of it. And something
Yeah.
like this deserves attention because also it could happen to anyone, dude. What
Right. I
happened to
mean,
them could happen to anyone.
that's the terrifying thing, and that was a missed opportunity to really sort of although it's interesting, I did some research on true crime, and I was thinking, "Oh, yeah, they're gonna tell me that true crime viewership actually prepares you to respond to situations like this better," and it basically doesn't. And, the point was that it can have a negative effect on you. It can make you more anxious than you should be about what's out there in the world, and,
Sure.
but the main takeaway from that was, like, what's more im it can teach you something that, like, these things exist, how to recognize a certain pattern, but really what helps you is, sort of training, like scenario-based training and physical practice for self-defense. So, I was saddened to learn that all of my true crime consumption is probably not gonna make it easier for me to respond in a situation like this, but I think that conversation is super important. Like, what do you do if you're in your life and it happens so quickly that people roll up on you, right? And how can
Yeah,
you protect yourself? Yeah.
and there are opportunities. It's just a lot of the true crime content out there focuses just on the stories, you know, and then it moves on. So there isn't a discussion like, okay, like let's talk about how this could literally happen to anyone. Um, it's interesting. I think I told you the couple things because we were talking about situational awareness and
Mhm.
what happened with Shannon and Christopher is they were, you know, they're in a I'm not I don't know Knoxville, so I'm not sure if this apartment building I think the apartment building was in a safe area. I mean, they felt safe enough to just sort of stand or, you know, hang out in the parking lot for a
It
little
sounds
bit.
like it was fringy. Like, there was, like, the wealthy area, then there was, like, the very dangerous area, and this was,
Sure.
like, in between.
Sort of in between, right.
Yeah.
But they were focused on each other, so they were not aware of the fact that there were, like, 4 I believe it was 4 of the yeah, it was.
Yeah.
4 of the guys were watching them, you know, so they had no idea. And, that goes into this idea of situational awareness at all times, and I was talking to my partner about it
Mhm.
because uh, he is I think he's due for his 4th stripe, but he's a 3rd degree black belt in jujitsu. He's traveled the world, and when we go out sometimes and we've been places, he's aware of he
Mhm.
knows everything that's going on at all times.
Mhm.
And I asked him about it because we were working on this case, and I said, What has made you that way? Is it from combat sports and knowing how physically uncomfortable it is to fight, right?
Mhm.
Because a lot of people have this idea like, well, if I was blah, 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 I would simply do
Right.
XYZ. And it's like, well, have you ever actually been held in like a fucking like half Nelson. Have you ever had to fight your way out of like a really horribly painful like position? Have you
Yeah.
ever been punched really fucking hard in your face? Like, until that happens, don't tell me what you would do in
Yeah.
reaction. And he said, so some of it is fighting. And the other part of it is like when he's traveled in like really sketchy parts of Europe and stuff. And he goes, we take for granted certain things, certain laws where we are. But when you're someplace kind of like super far from home and you don't have anyone else around, you become hyper aware of what's around you. Right.
Mhm.
And that has just stuck.
Mm.
And he also just he reads people.
Yeah.
There's that as well. And then I thought about, should I tell the listeners about my weird experience in San Francisco when I
Yes.
was, so I had this experience one time. I used to work for a leasing company in the financial district of San Francisco. And I worked underneath, so my boss was this dude who would occasionally ask me to like run an errand or whatever. And he asked me to go pick up some kind of like piece of electronic equipment, something for the office at a store on Market Street. And I said, sure. So I leave. And I'm on Market Street near the Powell BART station.
Mhm.
And I don't know, it doesn't exist anymore, but it was like maybe like a Radio Shack or something that is no longer in existence. But I went into this store and I found whatever it was that he needed. And out of the corner of my eye look, because there's like bright green, and I look,
Mhm.
and it's a dude wearing a Boston Celtics jacket. And I remember like kind of like seeing the Boston Celtics jacket, because when I was in high school, there was a dude that like he was a huge like Larry Bird fan. He always wore a Boston Celtics jacket. Larry Bird was Boston Celtics, right?
Mhm. I
Okay.
think so. But yeah.
Uh, but he always fucking wore that jacket. And to the point where it's like you always knew wherever he was in the halls, you just see the bright green. And so in my mind, I'm like, oh, how funny. That reminds me of so-and-so when I was in high school. And I buy my item and I'm leaving and I'm walking down Market Street. And I'm like kind of looking in store windows as I'm heading back to 8th Street. And I'm walking and I see that the guy in the Boston Celtics jacket is a few feet behind me, walking in the same direction. And I thought, that's weird. Oh, well, right? Keep walking, 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 walking. I get to just before I'm about to turn, and I look and I see that he's still following me. And I'm like, now I'm feeling weird. Now I'm like, this is a really weird coincidence.
Mhm.
I turn, I think it's 8th Street. I can like see it in my mind, like heading to Howard, right? Because I worked on Howard Street. And I'm like walking, and now I'm hyper aware of this guy.
Mhm.
He's still following, still following. And I reach my building and I walk into the building. He follows me into the building. And so if you walk in to the building, to the left is the elevator banks or whatever. And if you go straight, there's like a security desk. And so I go and I turn it and I push the button for the elevator, and he stands acting like he's waiting for the elevator too. And then I turn and I walk over to the security desk and I say, hey, I think this guy's following me. I think this guy followed me in. And the security guy like looks, and I turn and I look in the direction he's looking, and the guy in the Celtics jacket's running out of the building. And I told him, I'm like, okay, can you like, I'm on whatever floor, can you just like let me know if he comes back in? The guy goes, I'll keep an eye out. Don't worry about it.
Mm.
And so here's my thing. What if I hadn't noticed that this guy was following me? What was he going to do in the elevator? But there's also that thing. It's like, I have no idea. What was his plan?
I know, 'cause there are people around everywhere.
The security guy's right there.
Mhm.
Was he going to hit the thing and stop the elevator, rape me, and then run out? Like, what was the plan? That's the part that freaks me out.
It's weird.
Yeah, but
Ugh.
it was because, well, number one, he was wearing a bright green fucking jacket, but it was also a thing where I noticed him immediately when I saw him in the store.
Mhm.
I don't think he noticed that I noticed him. and had like a memory of that jacket and stuff. But anyway, that's my little kind of story about situational awareness and recognizing that I was being followed.
Yeah, Tim and I, every time we leave the house, we say to each other, head on a swivel. And, you know, like, we as animals, as humans, we are always scanning the environment for threats. We are automatically.
Right.
But we live in an era where, like, in order to see a threat, you have to be attending to what it is, your environment. And a lot of us are attending to our phones. And I think
Yeah.
that's the thing is, like, not that we have to live in a state of constant paranoia, but, you know, we know that our brains do this for us, like when we're driving, right? We pick up on things out of the corner of our eye, or we see something, our brains work so fast, and then we're able to move and not get hit by something. But, you know, just don't, they tell us now in Oakland, you know, don't, when you're done, parked in your driveway, don't sit in your car on your phone in your driveway. Get out of your car and go in the house because you're just sitting there like a sitting duck. So yeah, so situational awareness and like attending, like being present and attending to what is happening right now. Right. And
Yeah.
thankfully you had a visual cue that like cued this memory. So you tracked it, which is really cool. But right. I mean, there's so much going on, especially in a city when you're walking down the street and like which thing are you going to pick up on and how are you going to respond to that thing? I think like with situational awareness, it's interesting because like what I always imagine is, so I'll tell you, my dad drilled into us when we were kids. You know, we did actual practice with him around self defense. Like, this is what you do: stomp on their feet, kick them in the knee, kick them in the nuts, you know, like all those things. But one time I left the screen door, we had this living room that faced our backyard, and my parents had gone out on a date, and I was home alone, and I was sitting in the living room, and they always told us lock the doors. But I had the screen door like this, and I didn't lock it. And so my dad comes rolling up, and I didn't know it was him, and he's all, "Whoa," like, made some noise, and I was all, and, like, I ran and the first thing I did was run into the kitchen and stood behind an open cabinet door. I was like, "That's not gonna save me." So, like, not that I enjoyed that experience, but it's like that kind of practice can really help you, like, look at, like, "Okay, this is what it's like to be that scared." And, like, I think you have to be so mentally committed to not going to a second location when something like this happens, like a crime of like abduction or transportation, when there's a transportation element, like your risk is so high if you do. But can imagine being in the situation that they were in and feeling like bargaining, you know, like I can bargain my way through this. I can be reasonable. Maybe it's not as bad as I think it's going to be. But like you have to be so committed to just fighting in that moment as best you can and making as much noise as you can. Like you did. You didn't just like saunter down the street and da, da, da. You like made a beeline for the security desk where you knew you could have safety. You have to think so fast. Um, so do you want me to tell you some of the, I looked up the statistics on what happens if you go to a second location.
Yeah, please tell us.
Okay, this is so basically just don't go to a second location. Um,
Yeah.
so So there's a bunch of different kinds of crimes. It turns out with carjackings that those often don't end up in death if it's just a straight carjacking, but like this case is a cautionary tale. Um, so in money motivated carjackings and robberies, your chance of getting killed jumps from zero, almost zero, to 1 in 20 if they take you somewhere else. Um, and if it's a sexual predator abduction, if if they get you somewhere else, 1 in 3 or 1 in 4 people never come home, so get killed. And then if it's a child who's being taken, this is, I thought this was really awful, particularly awful. So if a kid's like taken from their front yard or taken from their home, 6 out of 10 end up dead. Um, so the main statistic was like victims taken to a second location are recovered alive less than 20% of the time in a stranger abduction. So it, it's like, I feel like there should be like a public service announcement to everyone at every age. Like, just do your best not to go. Like, for me, I'm like, they'll have to kill me right there. I'm not going anywhere with them. but you have to face getting shot in the head, I guess, you know, to face really scary stuff in the moment to commit.
Yeah, yeah, that's you gotta be a moving target. Like,
Yes,
it's
zigzag.
zigzag, yeah, it's funny, it's in boxing, when you're in the ring, you can't just stand there with your fists up. You
Right.
have to get your head off the center line, which is why you'll see this movement that boxers do, because it kinda there's like a hypnotic effect to it, but
Mhm.
also you're harder to hit if you're moving. You're harder to hit if
Yes.
you're moving, and it's like, you might get shot in the head, or you might get shot in the ear, or you might get shot in the shoulder, or you might get it might be a survivable bullet wound, or if
Right.
you get killed, at least you weren't tortured and raped before you
Thank
were
you.
killed.
I'd rather die
So
from a bullet than okay, so I also wanted to share with our listeners and with you, because I was curious about this. Okay, let's say somebody gets you in the car. This is how you jump out of a car.
oh, yes.
Okay.
I'm
To
so curious, this is
I
so
know.
interesting. Yeah.
So, let's say you're in the passenger side in the front, okay? So you have to wait for a speed that is under I would say under 30 miles an hour. They say
Yeah,
between 30 and 40, it's survivable, but
right.
after 40 miles per hour, your survivability drops considerably. Um, so you do it at traffic stops, at stop signs, at turns, whenever the car is slowing down, and obviously not when you're on the freeway. Um, so here are the steps. Wait for a light or a stop sign, or like a slow turn. Quietly unbuckle the buckle so it doesn't click, and turn your body toward the door and put your left hand on the handle. And then when it slows down, you're supposed to yank the handle, shove the door open, and then you're supposed to tuck your chin, put your arms over your head, and then roll out head first. And they said, do not try to land on your feet. And then as soon as you land, you should scramble up, zigzag run, and yell, help, call 911, I'm being kidnapped. I don't know if I could jump out of a car head first, but I guess if I knew what could possibly happen to me if I didn't, I would.
Well, this is where we now move into the concealed carry
Yeah,
conversation.
just have a gun.
I'm like, that was a thing. So Shannon, you sent me the link last night to the interview with Gary Christian, Shannon's dad, which was like 18 years later. His what he has to say about coping with the loss, not just the loss of his daughter, but the brutal, senseless, fucking horrible, violent loss of his daughter. And he talks a lot about his faith, how his Christian faith got him through. And now he's with her. He died last year, or this month last year. But one of the things he said is now, everyone in his family carries. His son, his wife, himself, probably a lot of their friends as well.
Mhm.
They carry. I don't know if Tennessee is concealed carry or if it's open carry. I wanna say it's open carry.
I've probably it's so expensive to get a concealed carry here, but I think I'm gonna do it. Everybody
I'm
in
doing it.
Yeah, everyone in my running I'm in this running group on Facebook, and I was surprised, like, the women were talking about running alone, and, like, I'd say 75% of them have a gun with them when they're running, which makes sense because 'cause you're just, like,
Yeah,
vulnerable.
very, very vulnerable, and yeah, I have all the information for, Ventura County for the concealed carry thing. I have the everything set up. I'm doing it. Don't fuck with me.
I wanna do it
Do not
too.
fuck with me.
I hate
Um,
shooting ranges, though.
I love
They're
ranges.
so overstimulating. I need an outdoor one. When Cameron and I took this class, a gun class, and it was great. The people who run it, I forgot their names. I should totally plug them. They're the best. They love horror movies, and we talked about horror movies the whole time. Well, not everybody, but me and them. But the loudness and the smell is too much. It's worth it, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's funny because someone like me should be overstimulated because I tend to hate, um but I mean, there's the thing, it's like, I'm not a big fan of, like, human physical contact, yet I work in porn,
Let me
and,
give you a let me give you a nice big hug.
yeah, I'm not and, like, I'm so weird with that, and I like combat sports where you're having to, but there's something about I think because the shooting range, it's such like a it narrows my focus so much,
Mhm,
um, but, I'd love an outdoor range though, just to be outdoors, and
mhm,
also because it kind of you're able to simulate things more. But, I have a really the my gun range is so nice. It's very chill. It's kinda big and
mhm.
clean. Everyone's very friendly. But yeah, Gary, I think it didn't say he didn't talk about it in the interview, but there's gotta be that sense of, like, what might have happened had Shannon and or Christopher been armed, you know? Things probably would have gone differently.
That just kills me.
Uh, yeah.
Yeah. Or
But
if they
so that's the argument for concealed carry. Obviously, I'm a huge, proponent of Second Amendment. I don't care if we get hate on that. Go fuck yourself then. Um, sorry. I've seen too much horrible shit happen,
Yeah,
and you're not gonna like disarm a peaceful population because of a bunch of assholes because there's a bunch of assholes who get their guns illegally and have
yeah,
no problem using it. No.
yeah, I mean, it's open season on women, so I need to protect myself. That's
I think about, like, I remember in high school, I think about this too, again, especially being a woman.
Mhm,
I'm sorry, especially being a woman.
mhm.
When you think about, like, so when I was in high school, there was a a girl. So I was a part of a small dance company when I was in high school, and the artistic director talked about how there was the Shen Ryan scholarship. It was a dance scholarship. And she was talking about her because Shen Ryan had been in the company and she was a dancer. And I guess one night, this was before I entered high school. So this had been a few years before I entered high school. So this I think happened in the 80s. But well, at the 80s. I was in high school in the 80s. So a little bit early 80s. But Shen Ryan had been at home one evening and had decided that she was gonna like bake cookies. She didn't have milk. She needed milk. Says, I'll be back. I'm just running down to the store. The store was within walking distance of her house. She never came back.
Ugh,
They couldn't find her, couldn't find her, couldn't find her. She was found murdered. I want to say raped and murdered uh, in a dumpster or outside of a dumpster. In a dumpster, I think she was found. She never, obviously, I don't even know if she made it to the store, but she senseless, senseless. Yeah, just a high
I
school
know,
girl. So I think about things like that. I think about Shannon and Christopher, like, I was thinking about, like, how they were on their way to go have dinner.
I
They
know.
were gonna go have dinner together. There were plans. They were gonna go have dinner. She had work the next day. He had stuff he was gonna do. And then this interruption, this brutal, horrible, senseless interruption. And I think about how
If only.
not only if only, but
Mm,
like it not to there is a place to exist between being just distracted and blinded and being hyper vigilant and paranoid.
right, yeah,
There's a place where we can all live,
yes.
you know? And yeah.
Yeah,
So I think about just Shen Ryan, like she was just on her way to the store and then everything ended. Like it
so
could be us. And
absolutely. Any of us,
yeah.
anytime. Yeah, I mean, I'm surprised I didn't ended up on the back of a milk carton as a kid, we just ran around all the time on our bikes, without
Oh,
supervision.
dude, so I would sneak out at
Oh,
night, dude. I
yes.
would sneak out and walk. I'd be
Yes.
walking the streets at night to go to my
Uh,
friend's house or go to a place I wasn't supposed to go, dude. And this was the
oh,
'80s.
the
So,
oh, that
like, you weren't gonna be able to ping my location. I was gonna disappear.
that case we have to do this case. The remember the park one, what's her name? She got is it Gary not Gary Ridgway, but she was hiking with her dog, and that's it. She was out hiking with her dog, and then she encountered him on the trail, and there were dudes passing her, and he was behind her, and there was a moment where she probably could have escaped, and she just didn't, and it could be anywhere. I don't even hike by myself anymore
Yeah.
just because of the human predator element, and I don't care, I don't really miss that. I probably shouldn't have been doing it for the last whatever, however long I've been doing it, but, head on a swivel. But not in
Head on
a
a swivel.
yeah, but not in a, like, paranoid, terrified way, right? Like, if you have your head on a swivel, if you have your attention on what you're doing, and you're not fumbling with your keys or your phone or whatever, you can trust that you'll hear or see something usually, right? You'll
Well,
be able
yeah,
to mhm.
that's my dude. He's not a paranoid person.
Mhm.
He just really is aware at all times where he is and what's happening around him. And,
I'm
you know,
like that.
and yeah, me same. And Gary Christian was saying that in the documentary. He goes like, nowadays, you've got everybody's on their they're here on their phone.
Yeah.
They're like narrowly missing getting hit by cars, let alone being abducted or, attacked by strangers. And that's the thing is we have stopped as a society, we are no longer present. We are no longer
No.
present. And that is like, as I say, like every day I pray. Every day I pray to God. And most of the time I do it because I'm out the door first thing in the morning. So I do it in my car. And that allows me like quite a bit of time to pray. And I always pray for the things I'm thankful for, like I said at the top of this episode. But one of the things that I am thankful for is the present moment. And
Yes.
then in that moment, I look around as I'm driving and I look and I'm like, oh, look, there's there's the exit for, DeSoto Avenue. There are the mountains over there. There is this. A red car just passed by. The sun is shining. There are some clouds. Like just be trying hard to just be in the moment. I mean, be grateful for the moment, but also just be in the moment, right?
Yeah.
And we're not doing that anymore. And a lot of it is we're so overstimulated with I say that I pray and I'm thankful for this and I try to be in the moment, but I like actively have to try because I too am absolutely distracted by this, you
Well,
know?
yeah, we're also just I mean, that's the whole thing about having the kind of mind we have. We're constantly distracted by thoughts and feelings and memories and daydreams and like it's such an important practice to drag yourself back to the here and now and what's happening here and now. I mean, psychologically, it's very helpful.
Yeah.
Because we're often in the past or the future and not here. But in terms of safety, it's
Yeah.
totally and we have all these things, other things now impinging on our ability to do it that didn't exist before, like you said, like your phone.
Sure.
Yeah. So really important practice because not only just for safety, but for sanity, because we're
Yes.
so off everywhere all the time. Um,
It is so important. I'm just gonna just push this and push this and push this. Everyone should be doing if you don't wanna do Brazilian jiu-jitsu, which I highly recommend for people, if you don't wanna do, like, real boxing, I'm not talking about, like, exercise boxing, I'm talking about actually learning how to fucking fight. If you don't wanna learn how to box, if you don't wanna learn how to do Muay Thai, or you don't wanna learn how to do Brazilian jiu-jitsu, get do take self-defense and stay up to date on it. Like,
yeah.
don't take a self-defense class and then promptly you have to be on your toes because your body will forget what to do, like, but just stay up to date on it,
Yes.
if you're a woman especially, consider having a
Oh,
different like, consider getting a gun and learning how to use it and being safe with it and learning how to defend yourself because uh,
Or carrying those oh, good.
yeah, or
Yeah.
yeah,
Those
I don't
batons, but also there's this thing that's that they sell that's like a stun gun now, it's like $400, but apparently it's like, boom, you
or
can
even
really
mace. Like
yeah,
I
pepper
I don't want to
spray,
freak
mace,
if there are people who just have an absolute aversion to guns and I get it. Mace, something that the pepper spray, something to keep yourself safe, you know. We you
personal
know when we were talking about Irina
yeah.
the Ukrainian girl and I think about like if she had been armed, she would have still been stabbed in the neck cuz he took her by surprise from behind. She could have fucking killed him, you
Or one
know.
of the people on the thing if they had.
Yeah, if
One of the
somebody
people on
was
the
going to
train.
yeah, if someone. But I say for her because
Yeah.
she was a victim and yeah. I don't know. In that point I'm just thinking in terms of well, you know, she shoots him and he never stabs another woman again. Um
100%.
yeah, but anyway, all that to say that it is I absolutely believe in learning how to defend yourself and protecting the people you love and protecting people that are really vulnerable and defenseless.
Yes. Like, and your kids, teaching your kids, make a scene, scream, say, "That's not my dad," whatever you need to do. Drop your body weight is a good one. Just go
Hmm.
limp because it's really
Yeah,
hard for people to carry you. Oh god. On this note
I know. What's that?
I said, "On this note, we're
Yeah.
headed off for our break."
Yes, we are taking our the rest of fall off and we'll be back in winter. We'll be back after Christmas,
I
right?
know, yeah. So
Yeah.
I know we're gonna miss everybody for the holidays. So I wanted to Dana doesn't know about this, but I wanted to give you guys a little gift, a Christmas carol.
Oh my gosh.
Come, they told him. Ba-ra-ba-bum-bum.
Oh my god. Oh my
I'm totally
god.
kidding. Tim
I
was like,
know
Dana's gonna
that's
die.
amazing. I that is amazing. Oh my goodness.
You
That
were
was
like,
so funny.
tell
That's
me she's
so
not.
funny. Oh, that's awesome. That's so
Uh,
funny. That would have been so funny though if you just kept going.
no, I was gonna start with the first day of Christmas, and you're like, oh fuck.
That is hilarious.
Uh,
Well, gang, thank you so much, everyone, for listening. Thank you for supporting the podcast. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for your suggestions. We are grateful for you. You know, we've been going a year now. Our podcast has officially been up a year. We're so happy. We're so happy to have these conversations. We're so happy to engage with you guys. We're hoping to continue to actually grow in the new year and be able to do more great episodes, improve on some things. We're always trying to improve. I think we have improved quite a bit since the first day we started. But yeah, we really appreciate you. And we hope that you guys have an amazing Thanksgiving and Christmas. We'll see you back before the new year. You should come back before the new year. Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah. We'll post our official like date and everything. But yeah.
Thanks,
What do you say,
guys.
Shannon?
I say thank you I'm all hi.
Hi.
Hi. Thanks for listening. We hope you have a happy holiday season.
Yeah, and we'll have some more um if you guys miss us a lot, you can obviously go to our Patreon and we'll have more little kind of mini content, trapdoor content for you guys. You can either subscribe or you can get them individually so you don't have to commit if you don't want to.
I will also be
And
on social media, so
yes,
you'll hear from
we'll
us.
still be on social media. So as always, follow us Instagram at Secret Passage Podcast, on X at Secret Pass Pod. We're also on Patreon, and we will see you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.